Thanks, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Treasurer. Today, in opposing Labor's reforms to negative gearing, the Treasurer described negative gearing as, and I quote, an entirely legitimate practice to offset the cost of earning an income against that income. Is the Treasurer aware that that's not actually negative gearing and is a practice unaffected by Labor's policy? Does the Treasurer actually know what negative gearing is?
Treasurer has the call.
Mr Speaker,
Member
opposite has just demonstrated again why those opposite are not able to manage a transitioning economy if they can't manage the most basic of concepts, Mr Speaker. In today's national accounts, this is the real issue today. In today's national accounts, Mr Speaker, 0.8% was the growth, quarterly growth, in household final consumption, Mr Speaker, and there was a 2.2% growth in dwelling investment. Now, I raise those 2 points for a particular reason. One of the reasons our economy is performing so well at the moment, Mr Speaker, is the confidence in the household sector. Now, what those opposite would do with their policy when it comes to the most important asset that Australians own, their own home, is that they would undermine confidence, Mr Speaker. They would undermine confidence in their own financial position, Mr Speaker, which is the reason why currently, with the reverse of that, with the increase in confidence, that we're seeing the household sector perform so strongly. Of the 0.6% growth in the economy in that last quarter, Mr Speaker, the contribution of the household sector was 0.4. But the other one I highlighted, Mr Speaker, is dwelling investment. I know you're not interested in the economy.
Treasurer will resume his seat. The Manager of Opposition Business on a point of order.
Yeah, Mr Speaker, the question goes on direct relevance. The question goes quite specifically to the definition of negative gearing, and the Treasurer, by going nowhere near that, is actually answering the question in a pretty emphatic way.
The Treasurer will resume his seat for a second. The member for Gilmore will cease interjecting. I think the member for Adelaide was interjecting. She'll cease interjecting. I can recognise voices much better than when I first became Speaker. The Manager of Opposition Business point of order, I don't agree with it. I'm going to say why. I had cautioned the member for McMahon about his questions, and it had a lot of information in it. It had an ironical expression at the end by being very well. That does offend the standing orders, and I'm going to be as lenient on the minister as I was on the member for McMahon. He's on the policy topic. Yes, no.
No. There is nothing ironic, given the quote that was given, in asking whether the Treasurer knows what negative gearing is. The quote went specifically to him describing negative gearing by a definition that is not negative gearing, and therefore it's asking whether he knows what it is. That's not ironic. It's a very specific question given to Australia at a media conference.
Just before I call the Treasurer, the Leader of the House will stop interjecting. The Treasurer is still on the policy topic, and I'm listening carefully to him, but I have cautioned on some of the questions, and I'm flagging it up front. The Treasurer has the call.
Speaker, I know those at home are less interested in those opposite schoolboy debating tricks, Mr Speaker. What those on this side of the House are interested in is what is happening in the real economy in Australia, and the jobs that are being created, and the innovation that's being unleashed, Mr Speaker, and the support that's going in for small business, but particularly in relation to dwelling investment, Mr Speaker. With dwelling investment, we had a 2.2% growth in the December quarter. Now, the predominant component of that growth was actually in the apartment market, Mr Speaker, in the apartment market. And you know who buys investment apartments predominantly, Mr Speaker? Investors. Investors are the ones who buy apartments, Mr Speaker. And one of the reasons why they buy apartments, Mr Speaker, one of the reasons why they buy them is they can sell them to someone else on the other side, Mr Speaker. And what those opposite are proposing is that those who would invest in apartments those who would create the rental stock, Mr Speaker, and make it available for the 30% of people who rent in this country, they are saying to them that not only are we going to take 1 of 3 out of the purchasers who might buy your property out of the market, Mr Speaker, we're also going to increase the capital gains tax on your gain by 50%. Now, if those opposite can't understand that that wouldn't have a terrible impact, Mr Speaker, on the sort of numbers that we're seeing in here in the December quarter national accounts, and if they don't understand that that puts at risk the transitioning of our economy, Mr Speaker, then they just simply don't get it.